Hello, welcome everyone to Talk Football. This is the last week of the season recording, so it's been quite a long season and quite an interesting one at that. So we'll go ahead and cover a few things, including top four discussions, bottom three discussion. We'll also cover who are the big losers and big winners, most impressive managers in the season. I'm sure a lot of people will debate that. And we'll wrap up at the end of all that for any remaining thoughts. Please go ahead. Just a reminder: subscribe and follow Talk Football. We'll go ahead and start. Who wants to start with?
Yoni, let me jump in here, right? Feel free to smile. Do not carry your feelings about Arsenal to this show, right? So let's get that one out of the way. Feel free to smile. I know Donadoni is here. So everybody, Donadoni is back. Thank you for coming back. Donadoni is a City fan. They are the league winners. I wish they didn't win, but it's what it is. I think we have more Arsenal fans here, so maybe you can take that as another trophy. We didn't go trophyless. But anyway, welcome our new guest, Lindsay. Thank you for joining. Yoni is in the house. Yoni is a great supporter of this Talk Football Live, but this is the first time he's joining us. Well, actually, second time.
Second, yeah.
Because the last time I went mad against Arteta. So, Yoni, Titi was the largest fan base Arsenal group on Facebook. She's here with us all the way from Atlanta, joining us remotely. So, thank you for joining. And the, blue jersey, whatever club that is, I don't know, but you're welcome back. So, Yoni, feel free to cook, popcorn, whatever. Who goes first?
All right, Charles, go ahead.
I to interrupt you. I would say Donadoni should go first, just out of respect for the league. The only City fan here. So it's like giving him a guard of honor to do when City came to play.
Well,
We're not going to be part of that.
winning is becoming a birthright to City. So
Oh, geez.
we're used to it. It's not something we're going to. It's just like it's a birthright, so we're not. It's not. There's no excitement about it. It's something that we should get every season. That is the way we look at it right now. Even the City fans are not celebrating like they normally should because it's a birthright.
Well, y'all spilled out onto the field. I guess the main question for is: do you see the treble happening?
Yes. Yes, except there's a conspiracy, which is very possible. I see us winning the Champions League, but with that FA Cup, the referees can do some funny things, just like they did when we played Man U, in which there was an offside, which they did not call an offside. They can play those funny pranks. But the Champions League, everybody's eyes are is focused at that. The media is on it. The world is looking at it. So it's gonna. Inter Milan needs a miracle to win that game.
Yeah.
I do have a question, but Yoni, I think you probably want to say something. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I saw something interesting regarding. It's because Donadoni, you mentioned about reffing. So the two teams that have had the most and the least penalties awarded to them throughout the season are actually playing in the FA Cup final. So Man U actually have only had 2 penalties awarded throughout the season, whereas City have had highest at 10. So
it's not even about penalties. If you look at the last time we played Man U, I honestly don't know how was it Rashford that scored or one guy that scored. It was an offside. There's
a funny goal,
everybody knows that's an offside, but they play some pranks, and it's very possible in England. A lot of people don't like City. Believe me, everybody does not like City, from the media to the FA. They don't like City. So I won't be surprised if something like that happens again.
I think I'm going to have to drag Lindsay into this conversation.
Yeah,
because I don't know, but I think you should push back on your last statement. Lindsay, please.
Yeah, about the media not liking City.
About the media and about English people in England, whatever you said, I don't know.
Yeah,
you physically said.
Well, I mean, I remember the 90s, right? I mean, what team did everyone hate? United, because nobody could beat them, right? And then finally, Arsenal come up, and finally there's some competition, and then Chelsea, and now you have City, who have totally dominated Manchester and the league. And in the these past few years of the resurgence of Liverpool, you did kind of see a bias. You did see like that Liverpool were the darlings of England, and City were kind of the money grabbers. They've spent all this money. So I do feel like there is some truth to what you're saying. Just like with Newcastle now, I think the better they do. And I mean, they haven't really started investing yet. So when they start investing, and who knows if they're going to be another City, which probably there's a good chance of that. I think you're going to see some pushback on them as well. So I do feel like there is a bias towards, these kind of, just like we saw it with Lampard and Gerrard. And then, Patrick Vieira, who was doing better than both of them, but he was not given the respect, that they were given, or, the excuses that were made for them. So I do feel like when it comes to Englishness, there is bias sometimes. So I think with, City and, the owners and the investing that has taken place, I do feel like there is a bit of pushback. But in terms of referees, oh my goodness, I mean, we could go on all day long. I mean, who was it? Howard Webb. I mean, the famous, Alex Ferguson's BFF, I mean, we could sit here all day. Refereeing, VAR, that whole thing is still messed up. But yeah. There.
Awesome. Thank you, Lindsay. Titi, I want to get you in. Top four. I think it's kind of settled, right? The only thing that could change between now and end of Sunday, by the end of the day on Sunday, is the third and the fourth place. Would you say that this thing is going to finish third, fourth, the way it is right now? Or do we see Newcastle, probably fumbling, and Man United coming up and taking the third place? Is there an opportunity for United to be top?
They have to.
Yeah, sorry. So I think so United played today with Chelsea and United won. But I think United is probably going to finish fourth. And my reason for that is as a result of the FA Cup final. So I do see the opportunity where they would potentially rest a couple players with their mind being in the FA Cup final. And Newcastle, on the other hand, Newcastle is obviously trying to end the season with. I mean, they've been playing consistently throughout the whole season, right? So I think that's just going to continue to trickle down. Keep in mind too that I think United lost Anthony today due to injuries. Yeah. So there might be an opportunity, like I said, there's going to be opportunities where they're going to be starting a lot of individuals who didn't have the opportunity to start throughout the season, and just essentially have individuals start, like their front top 11 start. I think it's on Saturday against City, because that's such an important game. It's their closest rival, and they also want to win a trophy outside of what we call the Mickey Mouse Trophy, right? So there's that opportunity. So I do see United essentially sleeping to potentially to fourth. Yeah, but it's definitely hard to say. But if I have to put my money on it, I think United would definitely. And keep in mind too, I don't know if United is away. United also have a very, very poor record away. Are you playing at home or away?
Home game.
They're home against Fulham.
Oh.
Against Fulham.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's tricky now against Fulham. Nah, they're definitely losing the game. Because if you recall, in the FA Cup game where you had that incident with the
Mitrovic and Willian, red card.
I think Fulham will be trying to bite back against United. So it's going to be a very, very tricky, bitter game. So with a mix of that, resting players, I see United definitely dropping points.
Do you really think they will rest players? I think the fourth place they played the qualifiers, right? Number 4 is not an automatic route to Europe. You have to play qualifiers.
Yeah, you have to play.
Nobody wants to be fourth. You have to play some qualifiers before you get it.
But that's always easy for most English teams that do that. Yoni, let me take you and see what is the motivation behind United trying to, probably take fourth and go for the other trophy. I'll tell you what my motivation is. I think they'll probably try to deny City treble and say, let's end up double because they already have a cup. They win that, makes it two for City. Now, maybe a trophy is bigger than the other. That's argument for people. Yoni, what do you think?
Yes, so I do agree. One of the main drivers for them would be to deny City the treble, but it's also City, period. Whether it's a treble or at any other point, this is a heated rivalry. So they will not want to lose to City, especially in a final. Yeah. So there's a lot riding, I think, for Man U, and the onus will be on them, I think, to try to really go for it and actually, you can say not just win, but actually deny City the win as well, right? So I think it's a lot more important for United to win that if they had to choose between that and finishing third. They would rather win the FA Cup and finish fourth. And as you said, usually the qualifiers are dead rubber for most of the English teams because they pair them with very small European teams, right? So I don't think they would be as concerned whether they finish third or fourth, but they would definitely want to beat City in the final.
Agreed. Yeah.
Charles.
First of all, let me talk about what Donadoni said about the fourth team going to playoffs to play for Champions League position. Are you sure that's still happening? Because I know conference will go for playoffs, but Europa, like these boys, Brighton are going straight. Yeah. So if Brighton going straight to Europa group stages, I think but we need to confirm that. Second thing is, whether Man U wins or not against Fulham, if Newcastle wins, Newcastle automatically. And guess who Newcastle is playing? Best team in the Chelsea league who is actually giving out Chelsea. We are giving out free points. So Newcastle is playing Chelsea. I don't think Man U will be bothered with beating Fulham as much as they'll be bothered with beating the FA Cup final. So yes, that's one. Yeah. Number two, someone for blood, all that stuff. But I think what happens, Man U knows even if they win, Newcastle is probably going to beat you, Chelsea, and still end up in third. So I don't think they'll force on what's going to be on the FA Cup final. And I actually think
but just to be sure, so right now is Man United at 72 points, Newcastle at 70. A draw will not even save. A draw will not save Man United because a draw will take Man United to 73. Newcastle wins, they get 73, but they better on goal difference. Yeah. So United needs to win that.
United definitely needs to win.
So just quick update on that, right? On what Charles asked earlier. I just checked. Since 2018-19, that rule has changed. Exactly. And so if you finish fourth, it's automatic qualifier.
Oh, okay.
So Man U doesn't need to win that game. So both Man U and Newcastle, they don't. Now, I think the FA Cup final, aside from even getting a double with City, something Gary Neville said. He said, there are guys to do the treble in England. Man U try to stop City from treble. I actually think final, just as we know Champions League final is Pep's priority if he has to pick one, even though he wants to win the treble. I think the way Pep's going to put so much in the final is the way Man U is going to put so much focus on the FA Cup final. And I actually think target that Manchester United, especially when Manchester City is involved. So I think Man U, they may end up being fourth. They may stay third if they win, but I know Newcastle is going to go all out, and I know Man U they're going to rest players for the FA Cup final because that's a big trophy.
Okay. So what do we think? Again, sorry for jumping, but for the United City game in the FA Cup final, who do you guys predict is winning it? Because for me, I don't think United has a chance.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. So since you brought it up, Titi, what's your prediction? FA Cup final.
It's a City demolition. It's
I think she's frozen.
Yeah, she's frozen. But she already answered the question.
What's your prediction? City Man United FA Cup final.
4-0.
City should win.
City should win. What does that mean?
But it's not going to be a 4-0. It's probably going to be a 1 or 2-0.
Okay.
Nah.
So Titi, we didn't get your prediction. Titi, what's your prediction again? 1-0? 4-0 for who?
Yeah.
City.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Ayo, welcome back. Lindsay, let me get your prediction. City, Man United FA Cup final. Who do you think will win and by what goals?
I think it might be closer because, hang on, we have a week between the FA Cup final and Champions League final, right?
Yes.
And I'm really with Charles on this, that yes, the treble is great, but let's not speak about the treble until we've actually won the Champions League. And right now, that is Pep's just downfall. I mean, and we're saying, oh, you know, of course they're gonna, you know, and really, I mean, it would have been amazing if we had Real Madrid in the final. Then we could be, you know, oh yeah, it's going to be a good final, and you know, it could go to anyone. But right now, we're saying City are going to take it. But didn't we say that against Chelsea? And I mean, what did he do? He overthought the game and messed it up big time, you know, and he's done it before in semifinals as well. So I feel like if he is really thinking with his Pep brain, I think Champions League has to be your priority, because right now, that's a blemish on his career with City. Yes, I mean, amazing what he has done, you know, with Premier Leagues, you know, even this season, amazing what he did, FA Cups, you know, Coca-Cola Cups, whatever cup you want to call it, you know, Mickey Mouse Cup, you know, those things are great. But until you get that Champions League, there is an asterisk against his name. So I'm thinking with a week in between, I don't think he's going to go full force with his team against Manchester United.
I'll go to Ayo for your prediction, but I just want to throw something out there that I heard, that Guardiola is actually thinking of winning 6 trophies in a year, which is to match the record of Barcelona. Now, if that's what he's thinking, the way I see him, which is very ambitious, I don't think he has the worries that you guys are talking about, but that's just me thinking.
He's a greedy
going for 6 trophies. I'm going to go to Chelsea. I'm going to come back to you, Don. I don't need to defend that. Ayo, what's your prediction? What do you think is going to happen? FA Cup final. We're talking about the top 4 actually for our fans, but we kind of dabbled into who takes the 3rd and 4th, and that had brought us into the conversation of whether United will care or they will try to deny City by winning the FA Cup final and prevent City from winning treble. So what's your prediction for that game?
So for that game, I think what I will agree with Lindsay. I don't think this is going to be an easy run match for City. But the way City are playing right now, it's honestly hard to see any other winner coming out of that game beyond City. Man U, even at their best, we know they have flaws. I mean, if you look at even the game that they played today against Chelsea, if Chelsea had someone who can actually score, who actually hits the target, that game could have ended 4-3, 4-4. You know, they had 2 clear opportunities in the first half where they could have scored when Man U was just 1-0 up, right? So coming up against City, I think what has taken City to the next level this season beyond Haaland is that City have now built a team that can do it all. They know how to defend. They know when to be compact. They can go long and counter-attack when needed. They can possess the ball when needed. And now to top it off, they have Haaland who can finish if you just give him a single half a chance, right? So I think that's what breaks the tie for City, is that Man U is not quite at that level yet, and City have managed to up the level again this season. I would say maybe a 3-1 win for City in that game.
Charles,
see, me, I like
your prediction.
I don't like everything to. You guys are all going for City. I'm going to switch in that game because it's going to be World Champions League and it's going to be Reds. All that's going to throw him off. I would say Man U is going to win that game 2-1. Just because I think Man U has what it takes. I understand what Ayo said. Beyond words, they are. But I also think, regardless, except for Haaland, they had a semi-final. You understand? I think when it comes to a one, Pep can slip up. He's an overthinker. One decision to mess the whole thing up. And let's not forget, Man U, they against Chelsea today, they did their thing. You understand? They just needed a draw into this game. Man U's team with a midfield of the likes of Eriksen, Casemiro, Fernandes. They still have Rashford, who's going to probably play up front or play on the wing, who can still score goals. And their defend, if Maguire is not playing, it's not as bad. So because it's the final, I need to step up. Now, I'm kind of saying this to be funny, but at the same time, not really. Just to give a different view from what you are. 2-1 in favor of Manchester United.
Donadoni, before we move to the next item on the agenda, I want you to defend this as a City fan. You've watched it.
No.
Go ahead.
Normally, if you watch City, what are the FA games? There's a different team that plays FA, and there's a different teams that play Champions League and Carabao Cup. So expect Ortega to keep. Edison is not going to keep. Expect Mahrez on the right. This is what just expect Alvarez to play. Ireland is going to be on the bench. There's an FA Cup team he has used from day one, and he has not switched it around. The scoreline is probably going to be 1 or 2-0. He's not going to play the Champions League team he played against Madrid because there's an FA Cup team that has gotten them to this stage, and he will trust that team to do the damage.
So you really think he will set Haaland out?
Yeah.
Real quick on that, Donald.
He has rested Ederson for the past 2 games. You think he's going to sit there? I think he's keeping.
Ederson has not played one FA Cup.
I know, but he could keep for the 2 finals. I think Ederson is keeping.
I can bet my money on it. Ortega will be keeping for FA Cup final.
So
Ortega is a good keeper. People forget to know that he's a good keeper, and he has kept all the FA Cup games. He's not going to switch it.
Okay, just one thing. I think Yoni is going to go, but Donadoni, Alan played the game against Burnley, FA Cup game that they won 6-1 or 6 whatever. Alan was on Rampage and Alvarez played. It was KDB that was rested.
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw that out. Yoni.
Now, I was just going to say, just on that note, still on that note, right? When in the FA Cup, when City played Arsenal, they actually played pretty much almost full strength team, whereas actually Arsenal rested.
That's another game.
So I think
another game.
Yes, he has an FA Cup team, but he gates it depending on who the opponent is. And so far, I think the only strong team that his City has played in the FA Cup is Arsenal, and in that game, he played his strong team. So I actually expect him to be may not be all the starting 11, but it's going to be strong enough. And honestly speaking, even their second string is still a lot better than what Man U can offer up. For me, as I see it, I think they win 4-1. I expect Man U to score. They have Rashford who can score on any given day. So they will score, but I don't see it being close. They're just too good. To Ayo's point earlier, they do everything now. They're also very physical, which is something that they didn't used to be. So they can do it all. Right now, I don't see how many can actually contend against this team in the final.
All right, gentlemen and ladies, I'm going to have to move us along. I know we spent too much time on this item. I will still have other things I want us to cover. Quickly, can we talk about the bottom 3? We're not sure. The only team that is condemned right now to relegation is Southampton. Who do we think the other 2 teams will be? Since I'm going to start with you. Bottom 3. What's your prediction?
Man, it's hard. So you have Everton. If Everton wins their game, then they're safe, right?
Yes.
And all the bottom 3 are all playing at home. And you have Leicester playing, I think it's West Ham, right?
Yep.
And you have Leeds playing Spurs. So I think it's probably going to be Leicester's going to win because West Ham's going to be resting players for their Conference League finals. So I see Leicester winning. And I also see Everton winning, and I see Leeds winning. So it's the table's just going to stay the exact same. Because I don't think Spurs is going to beat Leeds at all. Spurs is very similar to Chelsea, where they give points away. And with the fact where I said Leicester is playing against the weakened West Ham side. So I do see the table remaining the way it's at, whereby if Everton wins again, which they would, I see them staying, and Leeds and Leicester dropping.
All right, I'm going to go to Charles. Then I come to you.
Yeah, I agreed with you, Titi, all through. So you brought Chelsea into it. I don't know why you did. I don't know why you did to you. But it's contrary to what you said about Spurs. I think this is one game Spurs will fight to win. We've already seen. I loved the game they played against Liverpool, the 4-3 game, or was it 3-2? I don't remember. I think 4-3. I think perhaps is in defense and all that stuff, but I think the game and they're trying to fight for. I think they will get a victory against Leeds. Please, the table's probably going to stay the way it is right because that team wins their game, which I think they're going to do. It doesn't matter what the other two do. You understand?
Yeah.
Right.
So I mentioned about Spurs. Everton also have Sean Dyche has something about trying to just put the power in those guys. So in summary, I think condemn Leeds, and I think Everton Leicester does. They're going now also.
All right, so the table stays the same. UNTT. Lindsay, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with them both. I kind of feel like Spurs are really gonna try and salvage something from their season. And I think Everton, and I mean, as much as I want Leicester to stay up because of Dean Smith, I also feel for Everton. I know what it's like, one of the founding fathers, been in the league for years. I mean, it hurts. So I kind of feel for Everton, and I hope that they do win. And I agree with Charles, they knew what they were doing when they brought in Dyche. He's kind of, die or go home. So I think he's definitely gonna, just give them that little bit to push them over the edge. So I think it's going to be Leeds and Leicester going home.
Okay, Ayo.
Yeah, I have to say I agree with what the others have said. Everton, I think, arguably have the weaker fixture besides, West Ham, if West Ham decides to rest players for the final. I don't see Leeds winning. Allardyce has tried a lot, but even from his press conferences, I can tell that he's very frustrated with the defense. I think there was I don't remember which game it was, but they considered 2 penalties in that game. And he said, I worked with them all through the week with training. Stay on your feet. And, they got to the game. So I think if it's going to be maybe sad or a blemish against his record, he's tried 5 times and kept teams up 5 times. I think this is going to be the 6th time where he actually fails. And I see Everton winning. I actually picked Everton earlier on, I think a couple of months ago. I said Everton and Leicester would go down. But I think Everton just might survive because they are at the point where they're above. And if they win against Bournemouth, then it doesn't matter what the other two do.
I'll go to Donadoni, and the reason is this, then I come back to you, Yoni. I think there was an edition where we had Donadoni, and Donadoni said something about Allardyce, that they brought him in too late.
Too late, yeah.
Donadoni, respond to that. You still believe that there's no way?
Leeds have a mindset problem. They can't do 2 things well. They can't, even when they have a golden chance, they don't score. And they don't do the basic defending right. At this stage, no coach should be teaching you how to play the ball. And no coach should be teaching you how to score an easy goal. So Allardyce is in trouble. They are getting the chances. They are not converting a lot of the chances they get. Allardyce always builds his team in a defensive mode. Secure, we get 1 or 2 chances, we score, and we hold on to it. Right now, they can't hold on to a lead because they concede goals and they are not scoring enough. They are going to be relegated. with that mindset, with that level of play, they're going. I don't know how they even got to this stage, but they're going to be relegated.
Between Everton and Leicester, who stays up, Donadoni?
Everton has a fighting spirit. There's something about when somebody is drowning and is fighting to stay alive. Everton is that team. In their games, they are pushing forward. The energy is there. Everton is most likely going to stay up. Leicester, the players themselves don't trust themselves again. They don't trust Maddison. He gets it, but nobody even knows who will take a penalty for them right now. If they have a penalty, nobody is sure. There's no trusted player to take it. Vardy might miss it. Maddison might miss it. I think Leicester. I think this is the end of the road for Leicester. I don't see them getting out of this.
Start to here, Yoni. Wrap us up with this bottom three, rather.
Bottom three. So I do agree with everyone in terms of who is going to survive. I think Everton survive. It's a home game for them. By the way, all 3 games are home games for all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And so I do see Everton winning their game because it's a meaningless game for Bournemouth. And at home, they should be able to secure that. And then whatever the other 2 do, like Charles said, is meaningless. Having said that, where I disagree is in the Leeds-Tottenham game, as far as the result in that fixture. This is at Elland Road. And this is when you actually expecting, when you expect something from Spurs, when they actually need to do something, that's when they bottle it. It's very typical. It's a Spursy thing. We've seen this every year. And this is again at Leeds. I don't see actually Spurs delivering a result in this game. I think Leeds will come out. They will score. They drew against Newcastle a couple of weeks ago at home, and Newcastle is a far better team than Spurs. So I can actually see Leeds winning this game, or at least getting a draw. I don't see Spurs winning that. But it's a meaningless game if Everton wins, so that's like.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we have a majority decision that Everton will stay up. Leeds, Leicester might probably go down. It's sad to see 2016 winner going down in relegation, but it is what it is. All right, let's move on to the next item on the agenda. Let's look at the entire season, and let's talk about the big losers and the big winners. I know this is going to take some time but I'm very sure it's going to be a great conversation. So look at everything together. I don't know why you're smiling at me, Charles. Obviously, you don't fit in anyway other than being the big loser, right? You spend too much money, 600 million. What are you talking about, man?
I'll tell you in a few minutes.
If I call an Arsenal person, I will say I'm biased. So I'm going to go to Lindsay.
The
Big
biggest
winners,
loser, you mean the biggest team or
big winners, big losers. The entire season, EPL.
Wait.
Donadoni, I think you asked the question. I want to make sure that I answered your
Is it
question.
based on teams or players or biggest loser, biggest losing team?
Yeah, so let's not go with the manager because my next question is going to be the manager that has been the most impressive this season. So let's talk about achievements, the club itself, the team, the players, the results,
selecting one club
and the league. Yeah, but we're going to discuss the manager much later. So Lindsay,
hold on, Donadoni's question is the biggest loser and the players or the team?
We're referring to the team.
To the team. Okay, good.
Okay, so team, not individual players. Ooh, okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, Charles. I don't like. But yeah, sorry, Chelsea. I mean,
For biggest, I'll take it.
if that helps you sleep better tonight, Charles, then. I mean, and again, looking at just individual players, I had high hopes for Sterling at Chelsea. I really did. I know a lot of people at City were like, no, he's done. Yeah, exactly. But again, I think, just the whole manager issue. So Chelsea, West Ham have been disappointing, and Leicester, considering the season they both had. Again, if you're looking at those, not top, for top 6 teams that you hope have a good season and can build on it like Brighton did. Okay. Winners, definitely. I mean, Newcastle. I mean, what a great season. I think Trippier has had an excellent season, really done a great job. Almiron. Arsenal. And I honestly, I'm just gonna, you know, I bring some comfort right here. I think Arsenal have had an amazing season. And I think everyone would have a different reaction if they were not at the top of the league for how long they were. If they were trailing and second majority of the season, everyone would be saying, what a successful season it has been. Arteta has done an incredible job. Look at Saka, look at Martinelli, Odegaard, it would have been a different narrative. But because you're going from a expectation was up here and then that drop, I think everyone is now just hating on them and, saying they bottled it. But I honestly think they had an amazing season. Like, what he did last season, just, missing out. And then this season coming and actually taking it to City, making Pep and City work hard. That was impressive. With a young squad, with, Arteta, a young manager. I honestly think that was impressive. So I think, I hope as fans, you can take some comfort in, yes, you didn't win the Premier League. And I know that must hurt. I was there 92, 93, the first season. It's been a long time, but I was there. We came second to Manchester United. But, I think there is hope for the future. And I think he knows, what he's up against next season. So definitely, Brighton winners. Who else? Of course, City, but that goes without saying. Yeah, and I had more individual players that I felt were like flops. So yeah, but in terms of teams, those were my teams.
Awesome. Thank you, Lindsay. Yoni.
Yeah, I think the Biggest Losers is a no-brainer. I mean, it's the truth. Because for a club the size of Chelsea, for the kind of global brand they have, and for the amount of investment that they put in the team, to finish 12th.
I was ready for this.
Is ridiculous. So that I don't think, Charles. I mean, I expect you to say the same. By the way, if you're being straight, but that's so. Biggest loser, definitely Chelsea. Biggest winners, I think I have to agree again with Lindsay on this one. Newcastle have shown amazing trajectory. It was not out of the blue, obviously, but they have. You can see the growth ever since they brought Howie and then the new owner. There's clear direction. There's clear style of play. He's definitely developed a lot of players. They are playing. At least he's getting the best out of them as well. I know we're talking manager here to an extent, but the team, to me, from where they were and how they have kept growing and to where they are right now to be playing in Champions League, is an elite league this strong, is phenomenal achievement. So definitely, big winners would be Newcastle for me.
Thank you, Titi. Same question.
Yeah, I think we all share the same sentiments. Biggest loser is Chelsea. And I'm not going to go down the drain. I think it speaks for itself.
Wait till you hear my
Very
own
disappointing
answer.
season. But the biggest winner, I think for me would be between Aston Villa and Brighton.
Wow.
And the reason I say that, and the reason I bring up Aston Villa is when Unai was, brought into the team, I believe they were in the relegation group, right?
17th.
Exactly. And just the the work he's done with the team, the type of results they've been in. I mean, that ground is going to be a very difficult ground next season, right? So there's been a lot of improvements that have happened, and for them to get into, I think this Sunday decides whether they finish in the Europa Conference final, right? So I think that just the improvement that we've seen, that would be one of my biggest winners. And I think the second biggest winner that I would say would be Brighton. Keep in mind that Brighton made it to the FA Cup semifinals and they just lost by penalties, right? And they haven't spent a lot of money. And I believe when Graham Potter left, we didn't have this expectation for Brighton at all. We actually thought that they were going to drop off. Definitely didn't see Europa League, at all in the picture. But that manager, De Zerbi, has come in, and their scouting network, the kind of caliber of players that they brought in, young, and they're just showing a lot of performance and beating a lot of teams. And they've gone on to finish, in a position where they haven't finished in the history of the club. So those would be like my two biggest winners.
Thank you. Charles. I don't want to call you last.
I was hoping you save me for last, but I think I'm going to do two biggest winners. I was going to do one each. I'll do two for a reason. Of impression of the fans of the teams. Our dealt. And I'm a Chelsea fan, and I know so many Chelsea fans. Contrary to what you guys are thinking, it's not as bad as you guys are making it seem. Yeah, we lost out on Champions League, but it's really not as bad because we're in transition. New owners, new coaches, new players. So a real Chelsea fan who is not being emotional but is being realistic. When this change, I said it earlier before we started. When these changes started happening, when the war began and the owner was kicked out, we knew it could go left or could go right. It could be very bad, it could be very good. When the new owner was coming in and buying new players, bringing in a new coach. I was not a fan of Jordan Noah. I never supported Graham Potter being hired. So a coach that has put his team for years, I didn't expect him to take. I really didn't expect anything better. So realistically, I wouldn't call us the biggest losers. So I'm going to put you as number 2 as biggest loser. It seems like it makes sense to you all. To me, the biggest loser I'm about to mention is Arsenal. I always say one thing. Hold on. I always say I would rather the game I've ever life was 2000 Chelsea Manchester United Champions League. I get to the final and to lose. I'm semi-final. I'm okay to lose in the quarters. When I get into the final, it's unforgivable. Spending 93 for the league and number 1 spot and losing it. As a fan, that would be too difficult for me to take if I were an Arsenal fan. So in my opinion, Arsenal really is biggest loser because they lost the league. Forget all the top 6. What we are all fighting for is the league. For something you haven't won in 19 years, and for you to come this close and lose it, because it was in your hands. You didn't lose it because you
really came prepared.
Yeah, and drew Everton. My point is, the biggest loser is Arsenal. For the biggest winners, you guys already mentioned them, Brighton and Newcastle. These guys now, I mean, I saw the way Brighton celebrated. They won. That was phenomenal. I'm Brighton because Newcastle is in Champions League. Eddie Howe took over, or when the season started, next season. I don't think it will. So I think Eddie Howe is the biggest winner, and I think Arsenal's the biggest loser. Thanks for coming to me.
Thank you. Anything else you want to say? Anything else you want to say? You good?
Nah,
you good, brother? You good, brother? You're not doing it. I'm going to come to you. I really don't have much for you, Charles. Let me just.
I think the biggest winner is Brighton. Newcastle, honestly, are where I thought they should be. Why? They didn't lose their best players. They added more players to it. There's more funds. There's more stability. The players are well reimbursed now. So I was expecting them in that top six. The, the team I was not expecting to get it top six is Brighton.
Brighton.
Newcastle are where they are supposed to be. The biggest loser to me is Spurs and Chelsea.
Spurs.
Those two teams are the big.
Yeah.
I don't see Arsenal there. Why? The reason why Arsenal was topping the league was because Guardiola was toying around with the lineup. He was fighting Cancelo, fight. The moment after the World Cup, he stopped all this experimenting with Luis at the back. He just stuck with one team. And the moment he stuck with one 11-player team, he beat everybody. Before January, all throughout December, he was turning around, played right back, invited full back. It was even possible for him to invite the goalkeeper too. He was just toying around, toying around. But when he now got to serious business, he kept a steady lineup that could beat anybody.
I really can't argue. But go ahead.
So I don't see Arsenal was not a competition. It was City fighting itself.
Okay.
He's worse than me.
No, hold on. Donadoni, are you done?
Yes,
So
I'm done.
biggest losers is Spurs and Chelsea.
Yeah.
And Chelsea.
But you gave details on Arsenal. You didn't give details on the losers. What's going on?
Chelsea.
Why are Chelsea and Spurs the biggest losers?
Because Spurs, I think they have a leadership problem. The leadership is confused, right? It's not possible to have 5 great managers and they are all getting upset and leaving. There's something wrong with the leadership. So there's no matter who you bring to that stuff, if Daniel Levy does not get things right, they will all run away, right? With Chelsea, I feel that the new owner, he doesn't know much about football. He's not willing to learn from those and just kept on buying players, giving them 7-year contracts. I've never heard of that in football. Giving a player like Sterling that we were happy to get rid of, we're just giving 7 years, 7 years, 7 years, 7 years. Everybody knows in football, in 2-3 years time you lose your form and you keep collecting checks for the next 4-5 years. And that's the problem Chelsea has right now. To get rid of all these 7-year contracts he has with like 5 or 7 players, they will probably have to file bankruptcy to get rid of those players because they're not going anywhere.
Thank you. I was waiting for that, but thank you. I lost Ayo. I was going to go to Ayo, but Lindsay, I'm going to come back to you. I think you wanted to talk about Liverpool being one of the biggest losers. Can you explain?
Yeah, I just feel like they should be mentioned in there. I know Charles mentioned that, but that was with regards to Chelsea and top 4 and their restructuring. But Liverpool, I mean, how do you go from winning, coming second, and then not being in top 4?
Yeah.
You haven't changed your manager. Yes, you lost a phenomenal player in Mane, and maybe that was it. Like just underestimating what an incredible player he was. But then that was Klopp's failure to bring in someone who was going to replace him, but to completely, just miss top 4. I think
he brought in players. It's just difficult to replace. Even Salah does not play well without money.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Charles, go ahead. Wanted to say something. Oh, Ayo is back. So Ayo, biggest losers, biggest winners. Are you going to push back on Donadoni? If you don't want, that's fine.
So I'll come back to Donadoni. Let me pick up from where Lindsay left off on Liverpool. I did have Liverpool down as one of my big losers, and I think it took Klopp too long to figure out what was going on. He brought in, I think they had a succession plan, right, on the wing for Mane. They brought in Jota and they brought in Luis. What they did not anticipate was that both of them would get injured at the same time or around the same time and not have a way to replace them. Now, what he didn't plan for was in the center of midfield. Yeah. And he tried Harvey Elliott in there, at the beginning, and it took too long to figure out that central midfield. They brought in Carvalho, and he tried Carvalho in some games. Thiago was injured or not performing at the level that we expect. Thiago has been a disappointment for me personally at Liverpool. So I think it took too long for him, and for a team where they brought in Nunez, and it was okay. Now they've brought in a player who is going to help them go toe to toe again with City, and to just drop off like they did, I think that was disappointing. My other losers are Southampton. Southampton, because they've done this for so long where they just try to do the bare minimum to stay in the Premier League. And it's like, no, at this point, the Premier League is gone beyond that. We want 20 teams who are capable of fighting each other in every single game. And so for me, Southampton is a big loser, and I think it's time for them to leave the Premier League. Look at the three teams that got promoted. They're all staying up this season. They've all fought. That's the league that we want in the Premier League. And Leicester was the last one I had as a loser. I think they're likely going to get relegated as well. Again, Brendan Rodgers took too long to figure things out with. Granted, he had a lot of problems at the beginning of the season with Fofana, with the troubles with Maddison and Tielemans, and Vardy is going past his peak now. So he had issues, but I think it took him too long to figure it out. And by the time they decided to replace him, it was maybe a bit too late. The other one is Diego Costa. Diego Costa is just such a disappointment. I expected him to do something at Wolves, and I don't think he's even scored at all this season.
No, he scored one goal.
Oh, he did? Yeah.
Remember, he's coming from. He has not played for like 9 months. He's coming from a semi-retirement role.
He might as well just have stayed in retirement. Like, this is the Premier League. When you come in here, we want you to deliver, especially with what he's done before. Now, I will mention Arsenal. So I have Arsenal both as a loser and also as a winner. One, yes, I do accept what Charles says. We spent a long time at the top of the league. We got to the point where you need to close things out. And I hope this is where we learn, right? That we have the squad. Thankfully, we have a young manager. We have a young squad, the second youngest squad in the second youngest starting 11, I think, in the Premiership. Mm-hmm. And so the hope is that we will challenge again in the seasons to come. But I think when we came that close, granted, City had games in hand, so to an extent, it may be a bit unfair to say we were at the top that long. City had games in hand for a long period as well, so that accounted for the 93%. But when you've come that close, when you have it in your hands, when you're 8 points up, I think you have to close it out, and maybe that's where Arteta needs to learn. We'll come to that later because there's the progression we've had with Arteta, and I'll talk about that when we talk about managers. So I have us as a winner there because that progression has shown over the last 3 seasons with what Arteta is doing. It's a team that has gotten better year over year, and they've learned from when Arteta first took over, when we were in shambles, when we weren't in Europe, when we didn't even have a squad that we thought could get into Europe, to challenging probably the best team we've seen in a decade, right, over the course of a season. And it wasn't like we dropped off in February. It was like, the last 2 months of the season. So on to winners. Chelsea also is in both categories for me. They have rich owners again. They've spent 600 million. They have, a bunch of talent. Chelsea fans, you guys are all quiet now, but I remember last summer, you all were going on about how you were going to challenge for the league with the kind of players that you were bringing in. So now everybody's quiet, but you guys brought in Enzo even in January. As of January, you were like, you brought in Enzo, you brought in Felix. Yeah, like now we're going to be resurgent, blah, blah, blah. And it's all fizzled out. So they have the talent. The squad is there. I don't know if Pochettino is a winning manager. I don't know if he'll get them back into the top 4, but the talent is there. They still have Thiago Silva. Fofana is one of the best central defenders in the league. The talent is there. Everybody needs to go out, by the way. Wesley Fofana is one of the best defenders in this league.
The one that played today?
Not today.
Not the one that played today. Not the one that played today, but at his best, Fofana is one of the best.
We've had the discussion before. I actually felt they paid too much for him, and I felt that he didn't have the experience to
He's not an 80 million pound player. He's not
many players. That's no news.
Anyway, I think next season with Pochettino, with a manager that is capable, we might see Chelsea start to come to their best. They have some of the best young talent in the game, and I think it just needs a good manager to bring it all together. He will cut players who are not performing or who are not motivated. We'll see that. Man U, I have to give them their props, even though they're the club I hate the most. But Ten Hag has come in, he's stabilized them. He's won a cup in his first season. I was laughing at him at the beginning of the season. It seemed like he didn't know what he was doing, but they've won a cup. They're in the top 4. Then another final. He kicked out Ronaldo. He showed him who was the boss, and he's got a squad that is working. So I have to give Man U their props. Brighton, it goes without saying. Granted, if you all remember, they were actually in the top 4 at the beginning of the season. For about 7 or 8 games, they were up there. And we thought they would drop off when De Zerbi came in, which they did for a bit. But, he's had them playing amazing football. Even Pep says, they're the best team at playing out of the back in the league. And it's true. I watch them. Nobody gets the ball off them when they're playing, when they're building out from the back. Last one was Newcastle. Yes, to an extent, maybe they spent money and we expect they will be there, but they didn't buy the flashy players. They didn't go buy Galacticos. And so that's why I would give Eddie Howe his props. He came in when they were battling relegation, and by the end of the season, it was like, oh, what? Newcastle, were we struggling? Like, they were sturdy. And then this season, they just kicked off from there. So I don't think anyone expected Champions League football for them this season. It was just get a place in Europe, right? Progress from where you finished last season, and to have comfortably, as it were, finished in Champions League. They were even maybe in the title race at some point. So I think, that was my last winner, Newcastle.
Thank you so much, Ayo, for very good analysis. Charles, do you have a last question before we move on to the next
funny
question?
thing is, Ayo actually hinted on that question. The question was, they expected Newcastle to be where they are. And I really, really disagree. Because did you say you expected top 6 or intended to be champions?
So if you
Because
look,
because as Ayo mentioned, they were fighting relegation or something. Regardless of them, like I said, they didn't really buy first players. Did you really expect them to be in top 4 Champions League position?
yeah, I expected them to be there, honestly. Because if you really look at that team, well, after they got rid of Bruce, their best player was Maxima. They didn't get rid of Maxima. They brought in Isiak, and if you look at that team, well, it's a good, steady, hard-working team.
Yeah,
surrounded by Isiak and Wilson, who were going to score goals. So I was expecting them into that top 6 region. There was, even against City found it very difficult to break them down because they score in different ways now. They can score from a free kick with Trippier. They can score from a corner kick, and they have Isiak and Wilson there to knock in goals.
Donadoni,
so it's a different setup of it.
You keep saying top 6. They are not in top 6. 4. There's a difference. 4.
Right.
Yeah,
because they are that good.
I still don't think anybody will expect them in 4. There's a difference.
I didn't.
Champions League.
But quick realization, right? This season in particular, I remember one of our very first recording sessions. Some of us put Newcastle in top 4. That was because Newcastle had been in top 4 right from the beginning of the season. So for me, not trying to defend Donadoni, but if you had watched the entire season from the beginning, Newcastle has been kind of consistent. They dropped a little below top 4 at some point, and they went back there. So they've been in top 4 even at the very beginning of the season. I just want to put that one out there.
Yeah.
But how many times though have we seen teams outside the regular top 4 up until Christmas, and then after Christmas they drop? So I felt like it was another one of those scenarios. Christmas comes, maybe 5th, 6th, 7th, but no way top 4.
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah.
True. Anyway, great analysis, everybody. I'm going to go to the last discussion item before we wrap up, but this has been great. I actually enjoyed, and at somehow kind of felt stabbed a little by Donadoni's analysis, but it's okay. The way he kind of trashed Arsenal as not being the one of the best winners. I also said something I wanted to get clarity on. Did you say Chelsea? You picked Chelsea as one of the best winners because the way they are set up for the next season and for the future. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, because they have money, they've spent money, they've bought some of the best young players in the game. I mean, I think in the January transfer window, we're looking at any of those players from where did Madueke come from? They had Madueke, they had PSV. Yeah, they had some nice young talents, that I think Arsenal would have been lucky to pick up. Imagine Madueke being a backup to Saka. So I think the Enzo is, who was the best player at the World Cup. So they have talent. They've spent money, and that's why I think if Pochettino can get things right, I think he has the tools that he needs.
Okay, I get your
You
point,
guys
but
are not
also
ready.
I think the counter to that was from Donadoni, which is said binding them to 7-8 year contract. That might be the challenge, but we'll see how that plays out. But anyway,
Yeah.
I want to move into the next question. The most impressive manager of the season, and I'm going to kick off with you, Titi. Most impressive manager of the season. Take your time.
Oh, none other than Arteta for me. I was never an Arteta fan.
Oh, wow. So I'm not alone.
Yeah, I wasn't, because I was extremely disappointed with the pace at which we were showing any sort of progress. Keep in mind that we went 8-8, and then we had the opportunity to finish top 4 last season, and we didn't attain it, right? So I wasn't having any expectation this season. As a matter of fact, I did say if we win top 4, my expectation was top 4 and a trophy. And if Arteta is not in top 4, he needs to be fired, because I was done. But then for us to come in this season and the manner in which he has been able to coach some players, the football that we were playing, the way he connected the fans, I mean, it's just been outstanding. And keep in mind that this is a manager that wasn't ever a coach before, right? So he's pretty much we're his pilot mode, right? He's pretty much using us as his pilot mode.
Was the coach with City? He was with us.
As a manager.
He was a coach in City. We trained him.
Right, but he wasn't a. This is his first stint.
Just getting on the credit tonight.
Yeah.
Right, this is his first stint as a head coach. I mean, you look at the guy at United, right? Ten Hag. They've all had years. Unai Emery. Even the guy at Newcastle, Eddie Howe. They all have significant experience as head coaches, right? Arteta is pretty new at this thing, right? So the manner in which we were able to compete with Arsenal, granted, we're not able to attain our goal, which is something that he probably needs to improve on. But I'm confident now with the fact that he's been able to develop players. I'm confident with that. I'm also confident that if we can add in the quality of players that we need, I think the bar is really high with Arsenal. So to me, my manager of the season will be Arteta.
Thank you, Titi. Yoni, do you agree with Titi as an Arsenal fan? Because I know you and Hayo are very die-hard Arteta fan. So go for it.
Yeah, you've called me his lawyer, right?
Lawyer, yeah.
So the way I would think about this is, so there's a couple of buckets, right? So there is those coaches that have shown continuous progression, and there are those that have had quick impact this season. So when we talk about continuous progression, for me, I think of Arteta and I think of Eddie Howe. Not just what they're doing this year, but what they did last year and from where they started before that. There is clear progression in the teams. The players are much better than they were when they found them to now. They've made changes in their teams that has actually made their teams better as well. And where they are today is a direct result, to me, of the coach in both cases. And for Arteta in particular, to take a team that is as young and inexperienced as it is to actually contending for the title this year is a huge overperformance. So I give him a lot of credit for that. Now, the other bucket that I think of is the coaches that have made a quick impact, and that's Ten Hag in particular for his mind management and being able to steady the ship, considering what was going on at the beginning of the year. And then Unai Emery for what he's done with Aston Villa with the same players that he actually inherited from Gerrard, and all of a sudden they might actually play in Europe next year. And then obviously De Zerbi. And for me, at the end of the day, so my manager of the year would be De Zerbi for a few reasons. And one, when he came in the middle of the season, or sometime in September, right? And when he came in, Brighton had already lost their best player in the summer in Bissouma. And then by January, they lost their highest goal scorer in Trossard. And so after losing two of your best players, then he promoted unknown players like Bissouma and then lately in CISO, who both of them look like they've been doing this for a while in Premier League for the matter. That is insane. And then on top of that, Brighton right now, even though even under Potter they had good football, but the kind of football they play under De Zerbi is a completely different level. The way they press, the way they play out of the back, the number of goals. They used to struggle scoring goals. Now they seem to score for fun. Yeah. So to be able to implement that kind of footballing identity in a team in such a short period of time and do all the other things that I just mentioned, to me, that's why he's my manager of the year.
Thank you, Yoni. Great analysis. Thank you as well, TT. Lindsay, same question.
This is so difficult. I think every one of the nominees that were put forth by the Premier League were all deserving, and you've already touched on them. I think Io mentioned Manchester United as one of the winners for the season. I think Ten Hag has done a great job. I already mentioned Arteta and what I think he's done this season. And TT, you made some great points, with this really being his first time. I definitely have to give a shout out to Unai Emery. Thank you, Arsenal, for letting him go those years ago. I think, and again, I know you just mentioned the Brighton manager and him coming up in September. Unai Emery did not start till November. And we were 1 point from relegation. But not only were we 1 point from relegation, this team was dejected. I mean, Ollie Watkins couldn't score. I mean, Louise was looking terrible. McGinn was looking terrible. Coutinho, I feel sorry for him that he got injured, because I do think Emery would have done something with him. I mean, just our back line was just terrible. The only thing we had going for us was Martinez, World Cup winner and just a great goalkeeper. So I think what he did in his man management of every single player has improved. I mean, Ollie Watkins scoring goals again. Luis, you forget that was a player under Pep. And I know Pep wanted to keep him, but he couldn't, and now to see what Pep obviously saw in him, we get to see that. So the man management and then just the style of play. I know you guys mentioned Brighton playing from the back. We also do that as well. And that's going to be interesting on Sunday to see that kind of, structured control back to front playing Villa v Brighton. So I think I would love to imagine, what would have happened if we had him at the beginning of the season. So if you look at the contrast of a team doing so poorly, and the defenders, what he's done to Mings and Konsa. Mings is back in the England team. And Gareth Southgate, for some reason, just loves to not put Villa players in the England team. So, that was a well-deserved. McGinn said that Unai Emery told him, stop playing like a Scottish player, 1-2 passes, and start playing like a Spanish player. Take time with the ball. The things that he has done to each of these players, as an individual, and now to bring them together as a cohesive unit. And again, someone else said this, the only player that he purchased was Moreno. A left back. And look at Ashley Young. This guy's 38 years of age, and
we need to test that guy.
Seriously.
Yes.
So I have him up there. Of course, my bias as a Villa fan, but I have him up there, and I also have Howe up there as well. But I just definitely, I know TT, you mentioned Villa before, but I do have to just give him a shout out. And again, we're all fans. I know, Charles, you said earlier, thinking from a fan's perspective, so knowing okay, we've got these great owners who saved us from, relegation and just, and have money to invest. But then knowing that we had, Gerrard, who completely demoralized the players and just, took the team in a horrible direction, to know that Emery has been able to turn that around already in such a short time and has not even been able to really bring in his players and, you know, inject in that way. So I'm very excited about the future. So I definitely, I can see why he's there. And I know he's not going to win it, but, you know, as a Villa fan, it's exciting. And I definitely Howe as well. I think what he has done in a year and a half to get that team to Champions League football. And yes, they have money, but like I was saying, it's not like they went and signed some, you know, incredible, you know, 100 million. They didn't bring in Jack Grealish, and you know, they brought in Almiron, and Jack Grealish teased Almiron, who Almiron was doing better than Grealish for a long time, you know. So I think just all around, Howe has really done a great job with what he has. I mean, even bringing in, like, you know, Wilson from Bournemouth and stuff like that, you know, just those, you know, I feel like the team is a representative of that kind of hardworking Newcastle, you know, good old days of Alan Shearer and co, when they were, you know, good then. So I feel like he's brought that back to the team. So yeah. So, but I really don't know all of them. I mean, really, any one of them could get it, and I would say they're deserving. So sorry, I took a bit too long there.
No, that's great analysis. The only thing I would say, and I'll wait for you to respond to your praises and everything that you showered upon Unai Emery. I know he still has some things to sort out with Unai Emery. Even myself, that final, I don't think I can ever forgive him for that Europa final. But Donadoni, I'm going to come to you. Most impressive manager of the season.
Two managers, De Zerbi and Guardiola.
Do we need to mention Guardiola at all? Do we actually need to mention Guardiola?
The reason is this, right? People underestimate how difficult it is to motivate successful people. It's very difficult to motivate a rich man's kid. It's very difficult to motivate players that have won everything. If you take, for instance, it's probably very difficult for you to read at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning. When you were a student, it was easy. Now it's very difficult to motivate successful players. You can tell them the right things, and they still don't feel like running. Why? They've won it. So you can't take that away from him. Finding the tool to motivate people to push extra hard, even when they don't have to, is a skill set that most people don't have. So De Zerbi, because I think that team is going to disrupt the top four. They have a good team to disrupt anybody in that top four. There's no team in that league that can beat them comfortably. And Guardiola.
Oh, thank you for keeping it short, Donadoni. But you actually said something that really struck me. It's hard to motivate successful players, but also successful players that dream more would actually be motivated by themselves to go for more. Alan said he's not going to review how many number of goals he set for himself, right? But now he's at 35, so you know he's self-motivated as well, right? Combined with the player. But I'm going to go to you, Charles.
Yes,
Charles.
thank you. Can you guys hear me? All right. So
yes.
Yep.
When choosing manager of the season, I think it's actually very, very difficult because a lot of people actually did a lot of good things this year. If Everton stays up, we'll say Burnley. I mean, Shaich did something good by keeping.
No.
Hold on. I'm just saying. I'm getting somewhere with my point. You know, we'll say Arteta did good by not the way he didn't win the league. We will say Pep won the league. It's not as easy as we may think it is. It's gonna be in all of them. But I tried to take mutation, which was, and if you sit down 15 years ago till date, and once top 4, top 6, the likes of Arsenal will be there. Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester United will be there most times. Understand? So, after 7 years, achievement, but I don't think it's big enough to say Arteta. Just as he mentioned, Donadoni said,
question is most
and we all
impressive.
laughed.
Most impressive manager.
I know. And Donadoni said Pep, and we all laughed because we know it's like you know. And you know, Man U coming back Champions League. This is Manchester United. You know, they've always been there. So the point I'm trying, I actually think the most impressive manager, without a doubt, is Eddie Howe. As we mentioned earlier, they have money, but they didn't really spend the money that much. They didn't buy any flashy players, Eddie Howe isn't just in top 6 or top 10, top whatever. He is in the. When was the last time Newcastle played in the Champions League? You guys gotta understand what Eddie Howe did. Actually, is
2001. I said 2001.
Thank you.
The last time they were there.
Over 2 decades. So, how deep, in my opinion, is the most due, because bringing Man U spare to be there. Arsenal being up for Arsenal's trophy. For Pep, still going to be in see. Brighton is onto it because also, even though it's not Champions League, but for 10 new in top 4.
Yeah, they are.
I think it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Or there's also people that we give a shout to, like Aston Emery, take it where they are right now. They're probably going to play in Europe if they win, on day. Who else? I mean, John deserves. I think there are a lot of shout outs we can now Arteta also, for doing what he did, 93%. Even though he didn't win it, that's something. It's a record on its own. I'm not trying to throw shit. I'm actually being sincere. But what Eddie Howe did put them in champion.
You have
the biggest deal is the biggest.
You have to realize
we are under. Go ahead, Donadoni.
You have to realize one thing. As a Newcastle player, right? There's no disruption. If you look at the entire 22, 25 man team of Newcastle, there's nobody thinking of moving to another team. If you look at the entire Brighton team, the 25 man team, there are at least 5 players thinking of running away. Trossard ran away. McAllister might run away. So Newcastle is a stable team. When your finance is stable, you can sit down and work. They are not thinking of going to work for Amazon or Facebook. They are already there. The money is there.
Donadoni, quick question to you. Isn't that a job of the leadership and the manager himself to keep the team stable? That's what you have brought to me.
It's not easy.
You look at the financials and you see how
Eddie Howe is trying to say.
Eddie Howe does not have to worry that a player is going.
I know, but isn't that the job you do at the
There's nothing the management can. There's nothing the management can do. For example, there's nothing the management can do when a player feels he's going to make more money somewhere else. He will stop playing.
So if you're talking about stability, then will you give props? Hold on, Charles. I'm sorry. Would you give props to Ten Hag for the way he handled the Ronaldo's case? Because that's stability right there. The moment he got rid of Ronaldo, Man United became stable. And
was Ronaldo really the problem? Ronaldo wasn't playing.
He wasn't playing, but he was creating disruption in the room. You mentioned
he wasn't playing. We can. Why should we blame a player that is not playing?
He was disrupting the team. You talk about stability, you talk about disruption. I'm just throwing that out, just to challenge your point. That's what I'm trying to do.
Let me go back to that point. I see your point, Donadoni, but what I'm going to say is this. With the whole talk of stability and all that, you mentioned Biodo bringing Ronaldo is an excuse. I think you bringing the stability or stability is an excuse. I think with stability or without stability, Newcastle got into the Champions League. I think you guys are not that.
With no player leaving in January, no player running away in the beginning of the league.
It doesn't matter.
If you look at Brighton, Trossard ran away. The one of their left back ran away. Caicedo refused to play for like 3 weeks because he also wanted to run away to Chelsea or so.
Let me put it this way.
Yes, sorry, Yoni. With all that said, Donadoni, Brighton, like I said, I gave a shout out to Brighton. Brighton did not make it to the Champions League. I like to, when me and you talk, Ayo and Bjorn, we talk about when I talk about the great mention some names. Donadoni, you were in that conversation, Zlatan. And I say, go for the top of the top. If you're not going to guest or the greatest, so a shout out. Got the drama he did. He made Europe, but he didn't make the Champions League. The Champions League is the criminal. Bringing Newcastle, being there in 22 years. League. I'm sorry. Eddie Howe is manager of the season for me.
Yoni.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, so I get what the point Donadoni is making. Finances does help. But another way to look at this is, even though I gave my manager of the year to De Zerbi, if you take the current Newcastle team as is, and without even thinking about some of the tweaks that he's done, like moving what's his name from striker to midfield and making all the other players actually play to their best ability, that is, as it stands, the Newcastle team is not a Champions League team. You can't say you would take that to another manager and expect them to place that team in a Champions League position or third position. I don't think so. So that's where I would give Howie the credit.
All right, thank you. Great analysis. I saw something in the chat. Lindsay, you talked about. Do you want to bring that up before I hand over to Ayo?
Just my point was as well. Zebri inherited a squad, whereas I felt like Howe built a squad. So I would say there's another difference between the two there.
Yeah, that's it. That's a squad from Potter, by the way, that Chelsea couldn't replicate. But anyway, Ayo.
Yeah. So
Ayo, close us out.
Yep.
I want to wrap this session. It's been great. But Ayo, close us out. But there is one name that nobody has mentioned, and I don't know why. It doesn't have to be there, but nobody talked about Marco Silva of Fulham. Go ahead.
Yeah. So again, I think everybody has mentioned, people that have done really well. Arteta has been impressive, and I was going to talk about him in that when he came in, granted that first season, he came in halfway through the season. He just tried to stabilize the squad. I think we were 10th when he took over. He won the FA Cup that season. He finished 8th. And then the next season was about building a new squad. So he started getting rid of a lot of players, tried to keep things stable, finished 8th. Went from there to, almost getting in Champions League, but still it was progression. It was 5th. He got us back in Europe, which we hadn't been in a few years. And then it was, this season, which nobody expected. I don't think anybody called Arsenal finishing in top 4. I would say finishing in top 4 because of the squad that we had, looking at it on paper, that was a squad good enough to finish in top 4 until maybe Jesus came in. And he pushed City all the way. So honorable mention for Arteta. Honorable mention for Potter, because I would say that because Potter left a good job at Brighton, went to Chelsea, a dream job, got his £25 million payout, and he's probably going to get a good job again in the EPL very soon. A team will snap him up. So honorable mention to Potter. Eddie Howe has been fantastic. Again, honorable mention. As Charles called out, yes, it's been 22 years. But for me, why Howe is maybe not, he is the manager to do it. But I think if you look at Newcastle, because of the investment that they have, yes, they didn't buy any flashy players, but it was 70 million for Isak. It was, 50 million or how much they spent for Trippier. They bought in Dambon. They spent on Botman. They bought players. They have spent money. Right, it's maybe not the flashy names that we might see like the likes of Real Madrid and Barcelona, but they have spent a lot of money. It's a massive club in England. They have a 50,000-seater stadium. They are one of the few clubs who have won the EPL. They've played in the Champions League before. At some point, a manager was going to do it. So yes, maybe it's Eddie Howe who did it, and that's why I give him honorable mention. But for me, my manager of the season is De Zerbi. Yeah. Brighton has never been in Europe before. Brighton just came up to the EPL just a few seasons ago. I think when they came up, we weren't even sure if they were going to stay up. They've stayed up. Potter built a squad that was, at the beginning of the season challenging for top 4. And De Zerbi got them playing even better. I think that's what is most impressive for me is for a manager to come in where it's not like a Ancelotti, the likes of managers that take over at Chelsea where, they already have a great squad. And you just need somebody to tweak things and maybe have that new manager bounce. No, this wasn't a new manager bounce. He got them playing better football. I actually took time to study the way they play. Every player who has the ball, there's an immediate diamond around him. It's the same thing where they're playing out of the back. Every player on the ball has 2-3 options immediately to pass to. It takes time to build that. It takes time for teams to build that, and to do that in the middle of the season, and to go on the run that they've gone on, for me to then finish in Europe, in a Europa League, not just Conference League or not just struggling to get in, like it's confirmed they are there, right, with a game still to spare. So for me, it's De Zerbi with what he's done this season.
Wow, great analysis. I think I don't think we need to pick one, but I think every name that has been mentioned, every player that has been mentioned, everything that has been mentioned, they all deserve. I think it's been a fantastic season. This is the first season whereby we had the break, a World Cup break. This still went okay. We had a wonderful time. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to appreciate your time tonight. Thank you for coming on the show, Lindsay, TT, and Donadoni for returning. It's been a great analysis. We would love to have you around. Probably going to be doing another recording session for the
final.
And I think that should be a great analysis as well. So thank you very much. Thank you, our viewers. Continue to subscribe, like, share, comment. Have a great night. We'll talk to you some other time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.